allow me that I will call upon the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister say, this morning I have before you an audience of over 100 people so far. Amongst this audience, I have the captains of industry and their teams. I have our training and facilitators. I also have the heads of higher and tertiary education. I have business people. I also have our partners, the University of Stellenbosch, who are being led by their CEO, Dr. Chris. Honorable Professor Murwira, I hand over to you to give us some words of wisdom as we share some remote learning experiences. Over to you, sir, and thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. I'm not sure whether there is any word of wisdom that comes from me, because I believe in swarm intelligence. Swarm intelligence is where we are intelligent together, and teamwork is actually the intelligence that we can have. I can only contribute to the swarm. So I believe we're a swarm, and swarm intelligence rules the day. So I'm honored to be in this session, and I believe that it is a test of what will happen today and what will happen in future. We really believe in the triumph of the human spirit, and that triumph of the human spirit is actually signaled whenever there seems to be a problem that seems to be insurmountable. But we believe that we always win, and the team always wins. And we believe this triumph, of course, of the human spirit. The COVID-19 pandemic has transformed the way of life as we know it, especially within the higher and tertiary education sector, the training sector, the innovation sector, the science, technology, and technology development area. In other words, in the education sector, the pandemic has disrupted teaching as we know it. But it has not disrupted teaching. It has disrupted teaching as we know it. But learning will always happen. It has frustrated exams as we know them, and it has disrupted assessments as we know them, or as we used to know them. But it has also a potential of delaying certification. But we don't believe that we will delay any certification. We believe we'll actually accelerate the certification by adopting ways such as e-learning, like what we are doing right now. We know that when a problem is well defined, and at this moment, the problem which is well defined is the problem of COVID-19, and we know that we cannot meet as we used to, so we understand this problem. So once the problem has been well defined, it means solutions are very easy to come by. I have been having discussions with a lot of colleagues and friends who have been saying, so what, you are facing a lot of problems because of COVID-19. And I said, education, learning is driven by problems. So problems are what we want. We want problems. If you don't have a problem statement, you can't write a thesis. If you don't have a problem statement, you can't do research. So once there are problems, that's time to leapfrog. In actual fact, the higher and tertiary education sector, the innovation sector, the science and technology development sector thrives on the back of problems. So we believe that problems are what makes us drive our way forward. So despite the challenges that we have, in some contexts, it is clear that this problem also provides an opportunity for the development of more flexible learning solutions that make better use of technology and digital literacy. Digital literacy is becoming one of the most important requirements of a 21st century citizen. And this is time when life can go on for digitally literate people, and where life seems to have stopped for digitally illiterate people. So this is time for an opportunity to make sure that we learn. So we are now all of a sudden in an era of blended learning. We were saying we will, but now it looks like we must, and we must now. Ladies and gentlemen, to harness the potential for technology to effectively respond to this technology, to this crisis, it is essential to prioritize the use of technology through maintaining essential services, communicating life-saving information, and fostering socio-economic interactions for the benefit of all. And this can only be done through ICTs, like the way we are doing it right now. The need to speed up the development of a new strategy for information and communication technology at national and global levels in education delivery has now become more necessary than ever. We have already started this now, and we can't stop now. So I know that there's always what we call nostalgia and pragmatism. Nostalgia makes us want to see the way we used to see things. But pragmatism only tells us that today we used to see this thing like this, and we have to come to terms with the fact that we'll never see it like that. So we have to see it in new ways. And that new way today is virtual communication. And this is what we are doing right now. And it has become our new normal in conferencing. We are now embracing this technology during and post-COVID-19, since it increases accessibility and inclusion by reducing barriers to participation. Right now, we know, of course, we could have been holding this together in a conference room, and the airline industry could have benefited from us having bought tickets. The transport industry could have benefited. We know that. But unfortunately, we still have to make things happen without all those issues. So nostalgia is very important, but pragmatism and strategic intelligence for the future is actually the most important thing that we have to do, and we have to do right now. In this regard, I'm pleased to announce the partnership between our Management Training Bureau, MTB, and the University of Stellenbosch Business School Executive Development. They want to call themselves USBUB. Very nice. In bringing this remote live learning through technology-based learning. By the way, I have to remind you that, by the way, MTB now is now an established institute under this ministry for lifelong learning, and we have now finished their statutory regulations under Statutory Instrument 78 of 2020 that has come this April. So I'm very happy to announce this and to say we want to expand the functions of MTB. Right now, physically, we are knocking on every wall of MTB to make sure that it becomes a very good learning center and that it begins to expand its ICT infrastructure, that it will become one of the centers where every language in the world will be learned. And it could be done remotely like this. So we are establishing a language division, we are establishing an innovation division in addition to what it is already doing. So we are weaving the partnerships of MTB, and I'm very happy that one of the partnerships of MTB is with the University of Stellenbosch, and we are happy and will support this relationship and will nurture this relationship, and we want to make sure that it also becomes one of the ways in which we strengthen training within SADC by making sure that SADC institutions are driving in the same direction and they are collaborating and taking the world by storm. And we believe we have the mettle to do it. We believe we have the brains to do it. We believe we have the attitude to do it. We believe we can do it, and do it we will anyway. So this program gels very well with the government of Zimbabwe Education 5.0 framework. By the way, we have been thinking about this framework since December 2017, and this framework always says education must be able to provide us with goods and services. We say education is not for labels, so that I'm labeled professor, so that I'm labeled doctor. Education is for levels. Levels are seen in the production of goods and services that we do. So levels is what we want, not labels. We don't want papers, we want competence. We don't want poverty, we want prosperity, and that prosperity can only be brought when people have levels of education, where people can be able to demonstrate how useful they are, not how many papers they have. Papers are good as long as they reflect what you can do. But if what you can do is divergent from what papers are telling that you could be able to do this, then that paper is as good as nothing. So we don't want to be confused by labels. We want to be convinced by levels. And this is basically what Education 5.0 is saying. It's saying, in addition to teaching, research, and community service, which was part of the Education 3.0 design, teaching, research, and community service, we are now moving to add innovation and industrialization so that our education results into something. And our education is to look at the environment in which we are, which basically means our intelligence, our science is to work on our heritage, which are the resources that we have, in order to transform them into goods and into services that the world will enjoy. We want to be a participant in the world economy, not a spectator. It therefore means that Africa's attitude has to change from that attitude of begging to the attitude of contributing. And I believe the contribution is going to come with these relationships that we are always fostering. Together we can do it. As I said, there is intelligence in a swarm. When you see bees flying, they fly in a formation. When you see birds flying, the koala birds, they are flying in a formation. And it's combined intelligence of all birds. They behave as an organism, but yet they are individual organisms. But we believe that as human beings, we have to learn from that ant technology, from that bee technology, from that fluvian or bird technology, to make sure that together we can make it as a team. That's why we say together with USB, we will be able to do a lot of things. And we are inviting all partners to come and work with us and make sure that we still give our education, we still do our learning with or without conduct. And here we are saying without conduct because the virus have told us that we don't have to meet. Otherwise, it will transmit from one person to another. I'm aware that USBED is an international learning institution which specializes in leadership and management development, and that it has advanced significantly in remote learning. And it is our expectation that its collaboration with our management training bureau will enhance MTB's ability to attain its strategic objectives in technology and digital literacy skills for the 21st century. I therefore wish both MTB and USBED a long-lasting, fruitful partnership for the development of both our nations. And I say, we want to contribute. We want to contribute. The time for Africa to beg is over. This is time to contribute. People want a contributing Africa. They don't want a begging Africa. Everybody is running away from poverty, so don't try to sell it to them, because this is exactly what everybody is running away from. Let's sell opportunity, and this is the opportunity that we have, and we will use this opportunity. I take this opportunity always to say, Africa must contribute. Africa must contribute. We must contribute. We are here as part of a world to contribute, and that starts with the confidence that we have. That starts with the arrangements that we have. That starts with the swarm intelligence that we must have as institutions within the SADC region and as institutions within the Africa region. And I am sure that we will always make it, and we shall make it. Siyabonga. I thank you, Ndatenda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for the wise words indeed. You reminded us that Africa must contribute. You also highlighted to us that it's education for levels, not labels, and that there is intelligence in a swarm. You also, the Honorable Minister also highlighted that when a problem is well defined, it means solutions are easy to come by. Learning is driven by problems, ladies and gentlemen. So this is our time to leapfrog and thrive in the midst of this COVID-19. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for Statutory Instrument 78 of 2020, which expands the functions of MTB, both physically and virtually. Without much delay, may I call upon the Chief Executive Officer of USBED, Dr. Chris van der Hoven, I hope I pronounced it well, to come up and talk to us. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, may you send them through the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chimetsa. Honorable Minister, Professor Murwira, the Permanent Secretary, Commissioner Mache, and friends and colleagues, we are delighted to be able to join you in this way. If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is I want to talk about, you'll have to forgive me because like many of you, I'm an academic, and I'm very fond of what I call mental scaffolding. So the idea of creating some kind of thinking infrastructure. And to that end, what I've thought about in terms of this exchange is three critical national infrastructures. And Minister, I love the model that you have around swarm intelligence. I think for SADC that's absolutely crucial, and for Africa also crucial, and particularly in the context of saying we're sick and tired of being net takers and it's time for us to be net contributors. And we very much share that sentiment in ways you can't, I'm sure, imagine. But the infrastructures, the three critical national infrastructures that I'd like to talk about are, first of all, the technology infrastructure, very briefly. Secondly, the infrastructure around education. And thirdly, the infrastructure around relationships, which the Minister also briefly touched on and which is so important. I'll come back to that in just a second, and I promise I'll be brief. Firstly, it would be wrong for me not to bring you the greetings of our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Wim de Villiers, and our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Hester Klopper, both of whom are very pleased that we are part now of this very important collaboration. I think also it's important for me to give those of you that don't know either Stellenbosch University or the University of Stellenbosch Business School particularly well, just some comfort in terms of who we are in terms of international credentials. So the first thing I would say is not a formal credential. It's not titles, Minister. It's to do with a level. And that is that we are genuinely, in terms of our identity, very proud of our African roots. We are an authentically African business school. We started here, we're still here, we are going to be here into the future. We are not a European or a UK or a etc. business school. We came from here, we belong here. The second thing is that in a more formal sense, it's important to say that the University of Stellenbosch Business School is one of approximately 8,000 business schools in the world. One of the 1% of those 8,000 business schools. So there are approximately 80 to 90 business schools that has what's called international Triple Crown accreditation. This is non-trivial. These accreditations are internationally recognized. The first is the Association of MBAs, which is a UK-based entity. The second is what's called EQUIS, which is the EFMD, the European Foundation for Management Development Accreditation. And the last one is the AACSB, which is the American accreditation. Now, I know those are Eurocentric and Americentric accreditations. And so the fourth element of the fourth leg of the pot, if you like, is to also say that we've been instrumental in the formation and are constantly involved with the evolution of what's called ABS, which is the minister will know as the Association of African Business Schools, which is a fledgling entity in Africa, and our involvement is very much, and our intention is very much to remain front and center around the accreditation of African business schools. So I think that potentially the University of Stellenbosch Business School will hold 4 crowns, the last of which is the ABS accreditation, once that is formulated and formalized. And then the last thing in terms of our credentials, if you don't mind me being a little bit presumptuous in saying, is that we've got a very good team at USB Ed. We've been an entity in proximity of the business school and the university, focused on our particular area of expertise for more than 20 years. That might not seem a lot, but in executive education, that is a substantial amount of time to learn our craft and to get it done well. And I'm very proud of the team that we have, and very excited about what they would be able to do in this context. So I think that hopefully that sets the scene, and as I say, warm regards from our Vice Chancellor and the Deputy Vice Chancellor. I think it's also, as a preamble, important for me to say that from where we sit in terms of our perspective on Zimbabwe, Zimbabweans have always been held in high regard for their intelligence, thirst for knowledge, and extreme work ethic when it comes to education. Of that, there is no doubt. I've personally been very privileged to have supervised a couple of Zimbabwean PhDs, colleagues of yours, some of whom have now work internationally, some of whom are still based in Zim. And my exchanges with them have been wonderful. So that is something that we know is a credential that's important in terms of our relationships. And we're honored to share and continue the continued success, and particularly contribute in the field of executive education. We think that this impacts business and thus impacts the economy. And then with regard to COVID and remote learning, I just want to assure you that we've been very pleased by the way in which our customers have moved seamlessly across to remote learning. They've shown wonderful agility and adaptability in switching to these modes. And the wonderful thing about remote learning as a mode is that it provides improved affordability, which means that it provides additional access to people that previously, the assumption that we can all travel and stay in B&Bs or in hotels when we travel and so on, doesn't recognize the reality of lots of people out there who actually, if they had the ability to access learning remotely, would be very, very keen to do that, because all of those additional peripheral expenses are taken away. Of course, there's a wonderful exchange that happens in face-to-face interactions, and I very much hope that I'll get to meet some or most of you face-to-face at some time in the future. because there's nothing quite like human contact. But this ability to extend to people who we would never otherwise be able to engage with is really important. So having said that as a preamble, can I now indulge myself with my mental model? The first thing is to say, and I love the Education 5.0, Minister, and I've heard you speaking about this at the Pearson Conference, and I think that the always to take a step back and look at the context of Africa and how this sits within that is so crucial. So I am with you 100% on that. I think the first critical infrastructure that has been that's been revealed by the COVID situation is the infrastructure around the internet, bandwidth, and data. I consider this to be a critical infrastructure, and if you look around the world at places like Taiwan, South Korea, Singapore, and so on, you will see that access from the point of view of learning to this first critical infrastructure is absolutely critical. And I'd like to add that both from the point of view of remote working in terms of working from home or remote learning in terms of that, this infrastructure, this first infrastructure is not a luxury. It borders on being a human right, because access to education is so critical, and nowhere is it more critical than on our continent at the moment. So I believe that that is the first critical infrastructure. The second critical infrastructure is education itself, and in particular executive education, because of the impact that that has on the economy. Businesses and the institutions that nurture and support businesses are the building blocks of an economy. And the people within those businesses and those institutions need to be able to access education and executive education to manage that second critical infrastructure really well. So I would offer that to you. And finally, and this, as I said, was what the Minister alluded to, the last critical infrastructure is something that would seem soft to the scientists in the room, and that is the critical infrastructure of relationships, partnerships, and collaboration. I can't emphasize enough, and I was so pleased to hear the Minister talk in the way that he does about this. In terms of our small contribution in what we do, we are quite genuinely, we have at the center of our own strategy the requirement to strive for deep, long-standing relationships. And these are built on trust, a mutual regard, and a concern for a sustainable future. I think, you know, it's always risky to say these things because it sounds like motherhood and apple pie, but it is sincerely meant. So the three infrastructures for me are layered on top of each other. You know, a deep, long-standing relationship is something that means that you are friends and colleagues in good times and bad, and your vision is 30, 40, 50 years down the road, and an understanding and an appreciation of what it does for generations that follow us in terms of the sustainability of our economies and our environment. So the three infrastructures are first technology, so that we can have access, the second infrastructure of education, and particularly executive education, and the third one of relationships, collaboration, is absolutely the critical building blocks of what we would like to contribute over and above the technical skills that my team brings to the party in this regard. So let me not abuse my time, Mr. Chumeza. Thank you again for hosting us, everybody. Thank you for being part of this conversation, and thank you for taking the first steps in this important journey with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris van der Hoven. Thank you very much for talking to us about USB's triple crown accreditation. And thank you very much for telling us what you're doing with the fourth crown. We remain inspired. Thank you very much for also sharing on the three infrastructures: technology, education, and relationships, which are layered upon each other. And thank you for working with us in the long-term view of a vision which is far ahead going as far as 50 years. We thank you very much for your wise words, sir. Without much delay, can I call upon Mr. Jim Linsky? He's the Director for ED for Africa, to just talk to us about the programs which are being unveiled under this partnership. Mr. Jim Linsky, over to you.
Thank you, Tipawia. Good morning, Minister, Permanent Secretary, distinguished guests, Commissioner Mache, and the whole of the MDP team. First, I'd just like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us this morning and taking some time out your busy schedules. Yes, for those of you who don't know me, I know a lot of people do, but for those of you who don't know me, this is a very strong Scottish accent. So I will try and make sure that I speak nice and slowly so that everybody can understand me this morning. I think really just again to thank the Honourable Minister and our CEO Chris really for setting the scene this morning, and really for just getting the partnership between USB Ed and MTB formally off the ground. Really, for those of you who know myself, Nancy and her team have been working meticulously over the last few years to put this into place. And really, the COVID-19, as much as it's been a very sad event in our world, has actually created a huge opportunity for all of us. And I think, as has been emphasised already this morning, one of the things that has happened is a rapid shift from what has been the traditional face-to-face, like the Minister mentioned earlier on, where we were in conference rooms and we were flying around and we were travelling and we were having lunches, to the remote world where we're 100% focused on the learning experience. And that's really what USB Ed has been doing over the last 3 months, is that we've been getting ourselves 100% ready to make sure that we can deliver on this remote platform. And really what our goal this morning is really to take you through in a little bit more detail how that migration has taken place, and really just to give you all an exposure to what remote learning is going to be like under the USB Ed umbrella. Myself, my team, as well as the team at MTB, particularly with Nancy, Deborah and Tapiwa, have been working behind the scenes to try and get some programs up and running and ready. I'm not going to share all the detail this morning because I know there's going to be 101 questions, and MTB will be the drivers behind the scenes for all of our delivery in Zimbabwe. So they're going to be the custodians of all the detail. But we have been working quite closely on getting together programs that we want to start as early as July this year. Most of the groundwork has already been done. I think, as Chris already inferred, one of the big advantages of moving to the remote platform, other than the fact that we take out all of the logistics of having to travel and go to venues, etc., one of the other big advantages is that we move a lot of the costs that sometimes make some of these programs a little bit more inhibitive than they normally are, such as having to cater for venues and flights and accommodation and all that type of stuff. So we're hoping that when we bring these programs to the Zimbabwean market, that cost effectively they're a lot more affordable for people to come on board and join the platforms. I think the other thing, and I think Chris alluded to this nicely as well this morning, is that moving across to a platform such as you're going to experience this morning on the Zoom platform does nothing to detract from the quality of the program. And that has always been one of our priorities when we move across to remote learning, that the quality of the program remains unchanged. And that is really what we've been unwaveringly focusing on behind the scenes over the last 2 months, is making sure that all of our faculty, all of our support structures, all of our support staff are 100% fully ready to deliver the experience for you guys on the Zoom platform. So yeah, guys, it's exciting times. I will be on this session the entire morning, and obviously at the end of the session with Kevin Henderson. Kevin's going to be the person who's going to spend a little bit of time with you all this morning, focusing primarily on the experience and how the experience is going to work. But we are about to announce that we are going to be launching a masterclass a 2-day masterclass, which has been put together based on a lot of feedback that we've had from our colleagues in the Zimbabwean market. So the focus of this masterclass is going to be on ethical leadership. It's going to be a 2-day masterclass. It's going to be delivered by one of our colleagues in Cape Town, Dr. Arnold Smith. And we will be putting together the flyer that we can distribute to everybody. I know everybody in the back of their mind is also curious to know about costing, but we will talk about that with you as well. The second program that is already now almost complete is the full delivery of what we call our Management Development Program, our MDP program, and that will also be getting launched. So the information will be getting sent to you as well. And as Commissioner Matchey already alluded to, there's a lot of other initiatives that are going on behind the scenes that we're putting together. The other stream of learning that we were going to be sharing with you all is our online learning. So that is obviously slightly different from our remote learning. And just for those of you, from a clarity point of view, our remote learning platform is where we deliver our programs in the format that you're experiencing this morning. So it's going to be live interaction with faculty. Online learning is where we're going to afford participants the opportunity to learn at their own pace, on their own devices, at their own time, but still go through the quality learning that USB Ed can offer. So I also don't want to take up all of your time this morning. I know the Minister has given up a lot of his time this morning, which we really appreciate. Minister, thank you very much, and Permanent Secretary, and to Chris as well. So I want to afford these gentlemen the opportunity to go back, because I know they've got a lot of other work to do. And what we're going to do next is we're going to hand over to the USB Ed team and start sharing some experiences with you. Nancy Tapiwa, I don't know, I haven't seen any questions come through on the chat yet, but if there are any questions in the meantime for any of us, especially before some of our esteemed colleagues leave, please put the questions on the chat. Otherwise, Tapiwa, I will hand back to you for now. We can move on to the next part of the agenda for this morning. And then myself and my team, I've got Ilonka here. Ilonka is the director for the Botswana channel. So she's my partner in crime looking after Africa. And I've got Trisella here, who has been the host for the program, the session this morning. So she's been the driver, making sure that everybody's been online this morning. So myself, Trisella, Ilonka, and one of the other members of the USB team will all be here to answer your questions as we go through the session this morning. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Permanent Secretary and distinguished guests. Tapiwa, back to you.
Thank you very much, Jim. I would like to make use of my powers a bit as the MC to ask the Minister and Dr. Chris van der Hoven to hang on. We also wanted them to have a feel of the training which we are about to get into. So the questions are coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, please continue sending in the questions so that we will ask them. But for now, allow me not to release them. Going forward, I'll hand over to Kevin Henderson to go through the learning process, to go through the remote learning using Zoom as a platform. Kevin Anderson is the learning process facilitator at USB Ed. So I'll hand over to Kevin. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, may you please send through your questions to the chat, through chat. Then we'll ask the Honorable Minister, we'll ask Dr. Chris as we proceed. But as Jim said, we have a masterclass coming up in July on ethical leadership. We have management development programs. We have an executive development program for the executives as well. So we will send out more information on those. Over to you, Kevin Anderson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Program Director. The Honorable Minister, esteemed guests, thank you very much for having me on behalf of USB Ed, and a very hearty welcome here from Cape Town, South Africa. It's an honorable pleasure for me to be here, and I trust that we would sort of share some experiences as well as some ideas around how we can make remote learning optimized and continue to educate and develop our people in Africa. At this point in time, I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see what I have prepared in my PowerPoint, and then we can continue. I just want to make 100% sure that I have everything going right. Good. Thank you. So for this morning, I have divided my little session into 3 sections or parts. So I'm going to be talking a little bit around the role of the LPF, or also known as the Learning Process Facilitator. I'm then going to sort of give you some ideas in terms of what is possible to do when we are busy with remote learning. And then after that, I'm going to get you to try some things in terms of practice what we have preached. And so I will actually get you to break up into breakaway rooms so that you can practice that as well. You will notice that I've indicated some Q&A after each of my little sections. I might actually, because I'm watching the time as well, actually decide to just continue. But I hope that we will have enough time for all of us to do that. I was listening carefully to the speeches by the Honorable Minister and our CEO and other speakers. And I thought to myself, let me sort of get the awareness of where we are in this world by sharing this particular cartoon with you. And I was looking at that. I have a 2-year-old grandson, and I was actually beginning to laugh at the idea. This is the kind of response we're going to find with our young people when they start going to kindergarten, when they say they didn't even have Wi-Fi. However, as a kid in school, I was one of those kids who often used to be in trouble with the principal. I'm sure you can probably look at my face and see this looks like a very naughty face. And so I often needed to land up with the principal for, for some detention or something like that. And I was wondering, how is this going to work within the space of remote learning and in the virtual space? And this cartoon actually came up, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. They even found a way of dealing with that. I hope you can see the funny in that. But I'm hoping that we won't have to be able to send any of our participants to the principal's office website, but that we would understand that how this space is different, and that we need to find ways of adjusting how we work in this space as well. Having said that, I want to start by quickly talking about what we call the naming convention when we work in the remote space. And I'm also going to give the colleagues or the participants this morning an opportunity to actually fix that. There's a very important reason why we want to have this particular naming convention. And the naming convention for us has been to put down your first name and your surname, or as the Americans would sometimes say, your last name. In my example, I've just given there as Kevin Henderson. The first reason for that, and you obviously have noticed this morning when you logged in, that you were put in a waiting room. Now, when you are in the waiting room, it allows the host of the session to allow people in or to deny people access to the Zoom room. So what happens is, if we don't know who you are, it's very difficult for people to admit you. I've noticed there's someone, I'm looking at my screen now, and I see there's a person with the name Galaxy A30s. Which is not obviously the person's name, but it's the name of the device. And so therefore, it would be useful to change that. So that's the one reason. In South Africa recently, we've had a situation in our parliament where some unsavory things were shared, and that kind of situation could have been prevented if people could identify themselves. Now, don't panic when that happens. When you get into the waiting room, the host can actually chat to you to tell you to change your name or identify yourself before they can allow you into the Zoom room as well. The other reason why we prefer this particular naming convention is so that we can also, at this point of time, take an attendance register. Zoom is able to give us a roll call, a report on who attended the session. And if you don't have your full names there, you will be shown as a device or something like that. Hence, we want to ensure that we make sure that everyone is able to do that. So if you haven't done that, to change your name yet, the way you can do that is maybe just quickly to hover over your current video. Then you will see that on the top right-hand side of your little picture, you'll see two blue blocks pop up. The one will have 3 white dots in it. If you click on that, you'll be able to select the word rename, and then you can rename yourself there as well. So that's just the way that we would like to do that, to ensure that we know who's in the session and that we can sort of control access and we don't have unsavory or people not being allowed to be there within the session. So I was just wondering if you would maybe want to do that now, because I still see there's a number of people who haven't done that yet. If you maybe want to try, and if you have a challenge you can't do it, please just ask, raise your hand, and then we can assist you in that as well. Okay. Good. The other reason why we would like to have you put your name down properly when we are in the classroom situation, like I said earlier on, is also to get the reporting. And you can see this is the kind of report that Zoom can actually give to us, in that it will identify who the person is. You can see here at the bottom, I have about, from number 17 down, I have the person called Isa, who was not part, who didn't give a full particulars. And it's very difficult to know what that particular person, who the person is, who this person belonged to, and whether that person should have been part of the session. Also, what it helps us to do is to see here how long the participant has been online. And you can also then pick up here, for example, at this instant, the person was on for 1 minute. There, the person was on for 3 minutes, which suggests normally that might have been the person having some difficulty. Marjorie's iPad, I see your hand is raised. You have a question?
Yes. I kind of got lost where you were talking about naming.
So Marjorie, what I've been saying,
to do it practically.
Yeah. So if you're on your, at the moment on your video, if you hover with your mouse on there, you'll be able to see on the top right-hand side, there is a blue little dot or box with 3 dots in it. Can you click on those 3 dots? Once you've clicked on it, you select the word rename, and then you can rename yourself there.
Okay, I'll try.
All right, Marjorie, what we will do when we later on go into the breakout rooms, I'll come around and I'll assist you there as well, so that we can just move on from this. Thanks, Marjorie.
Okay.
Okay, so that is why we want the naming convention correct. So that's just at the beginning of the session. Let me then talk a little bit around the role of the learning process facilitator. So what we will be doing as USB Ed, we are going to have 2 facilitators within the room. So you will have the faculty, in other words, who is the subject matter expert for that particular day, who will be assisted by the person like myself, who will be the learning process facilitator. Now, there are some other things that happen, but in general, the role of the learning process facilitator is to ensure that learning actually takes place. And so I have a couple of highlighted points here. So they will support the faculty. So for example, by keeping an eye on people who's raising hands, checking on the chat so that people's questions can be responded to, answered to as live as possible. They will also be facilitating check-ins in the morning, but also doing some reflections after class as well. And then they will be facilitating the group projects that our participants usually are busy with. But the key responsibility of the learning process facilitator is their availability during the entire study school to assist coach participants regarding the application of the learning, as well as assisting with the integration of the learning. So you, by virtue of the nature of our programs, you'll find that we have different faculty coming in for different modules. And very often when it's presented in an isolated manner, it doesn't always form a holistic picture for the participant. And the role of the learning process facilitator, or as we call it, the LPF, is then to assist in helping participants in integrating the learning so that they can meaningfully apply the learning into the spaces of work as well. Having said that, that makes for a much richer experience for the participant, because there are two faculty members assisting the participants in ensuring that they have a meaningful learning experience as well. And as a learning process facilitator myself, next week I will have my third program for this year that we've started in the remote space. And I can, it's quite amazing to see even the skeptics who were once part of trying to say, now we can only do it face-to-face, are changing the tune very quickly as we're beginning to learn and see the potential of having a platform like Zoom as well. And then what else is possible to do as we are on Zoom is, the first thing I think I would like to highlight is to look at the screen layout. Now, you will immediately notice that, I just want to get my annotate up. If I go here, you will see at the bottom where I'm drawing this white line, this is where you will find your toolbar as well. I will explain the toolbar just now. However, I would like to just get a different color. You can see here, the screen layout at the moment is set within what we call the speaker view, where I'm drawing the red circle right now. You can see that that's the speaker view. And what it's done, what it will do for you is, well, the person who is speaking face will be on the full screen with some other stuff, other faces next to it. You are also able to select the gallery view. And if you do the gallery view, it will give you the entire class or the maximum number of photos or videos that you can see on your screen. As an LPF, what we often do then is to, in my case right now, I have two screens in front of me where on my left-hand side, I have the entire group participants and I have pictures of everyone there. And in front of me, I have my PowerPoint that I can deal with at this point in time. Okay, so that's the screen layout as well. Maybe just important to note that when you're using a smartphone or even an iPad, that your sort of view or your layout might be very different than what you would have when you are using your PC or a laptop as well. Having said that, if you go down to, if you see at the bottom of your screen, and where I'm now sort of drawing this red line now, you can see there are some different icons. The first one is your mute, the mic that you can mute. What happened at the beginning, the host is able to mute everyone. And so when your mic is on, it does catch up all the other noises around. So when we are busy facilitating, we prefer the mics to be on mute so that we can all just listen to the facilitator. Next to that, you will see your video, or also called your, where you can stop the video. Now that's an important thing, because if you look at me right now, when I scratch my head, you can see that everyone can see I'm scratching my head. And so obviously there are many different things that people will want to scratch. And maybe if you are just aware that you are doing some stuff, you maybe want to go and just stop your video like I'm doing just now, so that you can't see my face and do what I have to do. And then I can get back again so that people can see who is the person speaking as well. Then after that, you'll find a little button that says invite people. And then also next to that is where you will find a tab that says participants. I would like you at this point in time to maybe just go to participants. I just want to sort of clear all my drawings. And so I'm going to go down to the participants. And if you click on that, you should get to where you can see this particular picture that I have here right at the bottom. I just want to quickly annotate that again. And I want to use the red. So you can see right here where I'm drawing this little circle there. You should, when you click on participants, you should see those icons coming up there. When you do that, remember when you're in the classroom, for example, you are then able to agree with what the lecturer says. If you say yes, if the lecturer is asking a question, you can actually just say, click on yes, and the lecturer will know, or the facilitator will know that you're in agreement. You can also select there, can you please go slower? You can also go faster. And if you click on more, you'll be able to get some more icons that you can utilize. For example, you can ask, can we have a coffee break now? Can we have a leg stretch now? Etc. So those are ways in which you can actively engage with the facilitators while they are busy facilitating as well. Good. Having said that, also important to note that on your toolbar right at the bottom, you should see that there's an icon there that says reactions. And if you click on reactions, you can even clap hands. And so some of us earlier on when the minister was talking and when we were in agreement and we appreciated what the speakers were saying, we were able to clap our hands. So that's usually a good time to also clap. And maybe right now is a good time to try and see if you can clap for me. Anyone who was willing to do that? I'm not sure. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Mrs. Susan. Thank you, Innocent. Thank you very much for Mr. Minister. Thank you very much for clapping for me as well. I really appreciate that. Okay, then when we move away from there, we can also, instead of just only sharing or annotating, we can share our screens as well. So this slide that I have on here, you can see that I've selected the blue part. And that's now when I click on select my screen, whatever I've opened in my PowerPoint, I can then share my PowerPoint, which you are seeing right now. But also important to note, only one person can share at a time. You can select for more than one person, but it's important to note that we prefer one person to share. And note also that when you share your screen, your toolbar that was at the bottom of your screen would have now moved up to the top of your screen as well. So the toolbar didn't disappear, but it just moved to the top of your screen. So once you've selected, let's say you've selected that I'm going to do this particular screen, I'm going to share my screen. You then click on what I have right here. See, there's the button that says share. And once I've shared that, whatever is on my screen at that point in time will be shared with the participants in all the different locations as well. All right, then also, apart from sharing my screen, I can also start sharing the whiteboard. So Zoom do have a whiteboard, and when we share the whiteboard, again, when we share that, what is actually happening is that we will be able to write on the whiteboard. I just want to mute this person. So what would be happening is that we would be sharing the whiteboard. And then I'm going to show to you just now how we can do that. I'm just quickly going to stop my share now. And then I'll go back to sharing. And I say, I'm going to share the whiteboard. I'm going to share that with you right now. You also be able to see the whiteboard now. And then when I'm in the whiteboard, I can go there. You can see where the annotate tab is up again. I can go there and I can actually type something and say, good morning, Zimbabwe. And once I've done that, can you please just indicate with a thumbs up? Can you see what I've typed over there? Good morning, Zimbabwe. just sort of give me a thumbs up to indicate yes, we can see. Yeah, and so when people are in breakaway rooms, they can actually use their whiteboard and so write down or type down their feedback that they want to share with the bigger group. And when we bring them back into the big room, they are then able to go back in there as well. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that so that I can get back to my PowerPoint screen. Share that. And okay, good. So that's the sharing. And then lastly, I just want to go back to the toolbar. Remember, the toolbar has moved up to the top. And here you can see there's the annotate button. I just want to use my color again. And say I want to use the red. And annotate is right there. And when I click on that tab, a toolbar will pop up and I can then select the text or the drawing. I can even go as far as getting a stamp and just put a stamp down there. I've just stamped a little heart. I can go there and I can do a little arrow as well. And all of those kind of things I can then erase again by just saying, can you please clear all the drawings? And I'm back there as well. Good. Then after the content annotate, those are the things that you can do when you are in Zoom. So we've spoken about how you can share your screen, how you can change your layout. We've spoken about how you can share your content, which is your PowerPoint, the information. And we've also looked at how you can use content annotate to actually sort of write on different things as well. On that note, may I ask, are there any further questions? Any questions now before I quickly get us into a group little exercise in breakaways? Now, I'm going to talk about that quickly. I'm going to send you into breakaway groups. What's going to happen? You will then have to, I'm going to ask you to accept the group. So I just want to get there. We are quite a number of people. So I'm going to put about 10 people in per group. And I'm going to do it automatically. And I'm going to ask you to, when you go into the group, I want you to play around a little bit with some of the things that we've just been talking about. I'll put up my slide just now. I'm going to put you there for about 10 minutes. So what I want you to do in the breakaway group, just practice, play around with, share and annotate, look at your screen layout, look at content share, as well as content annotate. What I'll be doing, I'll be popping around to the different groups to just get a sense of whether you are understanding what to do. And then if you need my assistance, you are able to go to the bottom of your screen and see ask for help. When you do that, the faculty or the host would be able to come to your room so that we can just sort of assist in terms of a question that you might have. So on that note, I just want to open up my breakout rooms. I'm going to put you in there for 10 minutes. I know not everyone will have an opportunity to do this. So even if you can just have a conversation about how you feel about what happened, that could also be a little bit useful. So I'm going to open the rooms for 10 minutes and I'll see you later. All the best.
Hello.
Hi, Avril.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Okay, I was getting worried because it was just a blank screen.
Oh, no. Okay. Can you not see me? Okay, let me just put my video on.
No, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I see you.
Kevin is our host, and he's put people into a breakaway, and they'll be
All
back
right.
soon. So if you can wait for 1 minute, the rest of the team will be back.
Ah, all right, that's fine. Thank you.
I've just sent a broadcast to all the breakout rooms. I know that it was not enough time, but I just wanted people to see that people could do that. Yeah. Okay, I've sent a message. I think, that's about 5 minutes now, and I'll get them back. Thank you very much. I would like to apologize that I cut your time short. I trust and I hope that most of you saw my message that I've broadcasted to the different groups to say I'm going to cut it short by about 5 minutes. Avril, I see your hand is up, but before I give you an opportunity, I just wanted to say I was able to join a group because the group called me, and then I could interact with them. And it's just to give you a sense of what you can do within this platform. And I hope that this is helping you to become a little bit more comfortable with Zoom as well. Avril, your question?
It's okay. I'd initially joined a group, but then it seemed like I was then exited from the group. So we then didn't get to do it, but it's all right.
All right, cool. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to do a quick poll, and then I'm going to hand back to the program director. Just quickly, there should be a question coming up, and I've just said it like this. Now that I've been through the initial orientation with Zoom, I am excited, carefully excited, or still concerned about whether this will work. Please just sort of give your vote, and I will then share that with the rest of the participants this morning, and then I'll hand over to our program director. I'm just responding in the meantime to Ruth's question. The breakout rooms can only be created by the person who's the host of the session. It's not a functionality that's given to everyone. Okay. All right, I'm just giving it 30 seconds still. I see only 57 people voted. I'm going to end it within about 30 seconds. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. I know not everyone voted, and I will share the results with everyone. The results should be on your screen right now, and you can see of the people who voted, 81% are saying that they are excited about the program, 14% were carefully excited, and then there are still about 5% who still a bit concerned. And so from the USB Ed team, we would like to sort of remove that sort of concern that you might have. And so we're inviting you, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to contact the USB Ed team. Jimmy introduced them earlier on to you, and we trust that we will be able to make or to remove some of those concerns that you might have. On that note, thank you very much, Mr. Program Director, as I hand over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that quick session. I hope everyone now has an appreciation of what it means to be trained using a platform such as Zoom, the breakaway rooms and everything we went through. I'm sure it got us all excited as per the results of the poll. We will go now into our question and answer session. We have a few questions which have been asked. I'll ask people, if you have any questions, just drop them off to the host through the chat. We have a question for the Honorable Minister, which has been asked from Ed Moore, which reads, how much are Zimbabwe professional engineering institutions going to be involved in the vision you just shared? Institutions such as Zimbabwe Institute of Engineers and statutory bodies such as like ECZ, are they going to be involved in educational certification by contributing to relevant engineering and technology curriculum? Then the second question for the Honorable Minister is, the typical university in Africa has narrower bandwidth, for which it pays up to 5 times more than a typical university in the global north. Is anything being done to address these issues, and how? So I'll hand over to Honorable Minister, if you're still with us.
Yes, sure. I'm with you. I would want to thank who is that? The first question is from who? Kevin.
It's from Wellington.
Wellington. I want to thank Wellington for that question. We are saying, for example, our
a point of correction, it's from Edmore Illingworth, not Wellington.
Oh, okay.
Engineer Edmore Illingworth in London.
Very good.
Engineer Moyo. Engineer Moyo.
Engineer Moyo.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
No problem at all. I really want to thank you for that question. What we are saying is, when we talk about education that should result into goods and services, it's a very important statement. It means automatically all people who are involved in doing, in designing, in delivery, like ECZ, are going to be an integral part of this design. We are looking at the contribution of all engineers, of all practical institutions, to get into this design so that we are able to create. Because the issue is creation. We have to create. Roads are designed, created. Dams are designed and created. Robots are designed and created. It naturally, this is the prime time. I say this is Christmas or for engineers. Because we want to create an Africa that creates. And automatically it means all partnerships with professional institutions are going to be elevated in terms of relevance. All institutions of the nature of engineering councils and everything are going to be an integral part of how we want to deliver a future Africa. So my answer is affirmative. And as you know, we have made moves to make sure that the Institute of Engineers shall be given a grant from this ministry to enable them to be more effective. The Zimbabwe Academy of Sciences is going to be given a grant. We actually have a moderate grant for the Zimbabwe Academy of Sciences this year of 2 million. And this is basically a move to say we are coming and we are in a situation where we have to collaborate. And I talked in my speech about the issue of swarm intelligence. Together, we are more intelligent than an individual. It basically means this is a heyday for all professional bodies. We are saying, let's collaborate in creation. So Edmo Moyo, this is what I'm saying, and we are saying, come onto the table and let's have it in the field. And this is what I have to say. The other question, I don't know who it came from, about typical university in Africa is low bandwidth. Who do I address? Typical university in Africa?
I'm just...
hello, yeah, it's Martin Musengi in Masvingo.
Yes.
Yes, Martin. Yes. What we are trying to do is to remove this word called typical Africa, typical Africa, typical Africa. The typical Africa that we want to create is that Africa that wants to improve its condition, that wants to contribute to the world. I've talked about a contributing Africa, not a mourning Africa. A mourning Africa is the Africa which says, we have lack of, we have lack of, we have lack of. There is a lot of, there's a long list of lack of, lack of, lack of. So what we want, we are trying to actually create an environment in which all the creators of an enabling environment are energized. Now, what have we done? We have partnered with telecom companies, like, for example, in this country, you would know that all our universities at this moment and tertiary institutions, we have what we call the Edge Zone program. In the Edge Zone program, Liquid Telecom has increased the bandwidth for our students to make sure that they've got access to internet. So I don't know, the typical Africa that we are creating is a typical Africa of possibilities, not hindrances. So we are trying to take all those hindrances and turn them into opportunities. We know it's not easy, but who says life is easy? We are going to work, and we work with partners. For example, right now you see we are working with Stellenbosch. We'll work with anybody and everybody who shares a vision with us and make sure that whether they are green, yellow, from the sea, from the mountain, we'll work with everybody and make sure that we deliver an Africa of our dreams. But it's not delivered to us. We deliver it together. That's one of the issues also that I was saying. We are moving away from a begging Africa which says, we lack this, please help us. You know what? We can be helped when we are alive and helping as well. So the issue is about partnerships with everybody, of people of different cultures, people of different beliefs, and just get united in making sure that Africa is what my the professor called, I really liked it, the issue of relationships infrastructure has to be so good so that our technological infrastructure is good, so that our education is good. I hope I have answered. It's basically a philosophical shift to say we know what we are in. but we don't want to be in where we are, and we are getting out. So we are basically saying the lions have bolted. We are out there and hunting.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We also have a few more questions. These ones are addressed to Mr. Jim Linsky from USBED. He had asked me to give him a heads up, but I'm just giving him the question.
Go
There are two questions. Number one, Jim, is what happens in cases where one has to do practical subjects? Then the second question is, what modalities will be in place for special needs learners? There was an example of if a person is deaf, if we may say.
Okay, let me try and answer the first question first, Tapiwa. Okay, so the way we're going to, in fact, let me try and put it all together. So I think what we tried to emphasize this morning is this has been a rapid move for USBED to move from the platform of face-to-face learning into remote learning. But one of the things that we are very, very meticulous about, audience, is that we want to make sure that the quality of the programs remains 100% intact. So the way the programs are all designed, all of our programs, and I think it was emphasized right from the very beginning, the focus of USBED is leadership and management development. And our goal is to instill skills and learning and competence onto people to be able to take it back into the workplace. So all of our modules are designed in such a way that it is practical application of learning. Our goal is to change behaviors back in the workplace, and that will never change. And I think Kevin has tried to emphasize quite nicely that as we move from the face-to-face to the remote learning, all of our faculty are designing their days around delivering on the remote platform. But that practical application is always going to be there. So what's going to happen is that when we do assignments and when we do projects, all of these assignments and all of these projects have to be taken back into the real world. They have to apply the learning in the real world, in their work world. And it's that learning that USBED is going to assess in terms of offering certificates, which come at the end of all of our programs in terms of competence. And I think I need to emphasize again, and it supports what Chris was talking about this morning, just so that everybody understands this. USBED, our main goal here is to design and to deliver and to ensure quality. But when we give out the certificates at the end of our programs, these certificates come from the University of Stellenbosch themselves. And that is where the high recognition and the accreditation comes from. So I think I'm trying to answer the question as best I can to say that all of our modules are practical application. They will all involve research back into the real world and then back into the workplace. And the learning will be assessed on that practical application. I think to try and answer the second question, we're still actually at very early stages of rolling out a remote learning. And I think we've still got a lot of innovation that USBED is working on behind the scenes of how we cater for people who are not interacting on the Zoom platform. So I really think it's quite difficult to answer that question right now as to how we will handle the disabilities. We will be working on solutions as we roll out our programs. All of our Zoom deliveries will be recorded. So people will always have access to the recorded version of the module after the delivery has taken place, which will obviously allow people to go back and probe into it in a little bit more detail, get other people to help them go through some of the learnings. The other reason why the recordings are going to be quite important is that there are going to be times, and I see it's come through in a few questions, firstly to the Minister, but also on the other platforms as well, as around bandwidth and connectivity. And we do appreciate that if you are going to be online sometimes for 6 hours in a day, that some individuals are going to experience problems staying connected the entire time. which is why we're going to make sure that the recordings are going to be available. The only thing we're not going to do is make the recordings freely available to everybody and anybody, because obviously there's the intellectual property, and we do want the participants who have paid to stay with the program. So to people, I think I've tried to answer it, but as I said, if people want to send us emails and all that afterwards, and we can maybe answer some questions either through MTB as the custodians or directly to the USB Ed team, we can also chat with people offline as well if we want to go into more detail.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim. The last set of questions to Honorable Minister. Just two questions. Those are the last questions, ladies and gentlemen. The first one is students pay for administrative costs and upkeep for infrastructure which they have access to during conventional learning. Will this reduce cost of learning for learners? That's question one, Honorable Minister. Will this reduce the cost of learning for learners, given that there is no brick and mortar? The second question, Honorable Minister, says, I am in the tourism sector and we are amongst the hardest hit sectors, as clearly noted. Had this meeting been held physically, it would benefit the airline industry as well as the tourism industry. Are there e-training programs for tourism sector as we try to get Zimbabwe back on its feet post-COVID-19?
Thank you. In terms of the first question, thank you very much for that question. The students pay for facilitation, yes. The only issue now is that the facilitation has changed its mode to data. So we have not really yet calculated what it means in terms of the cost. However, what I know is that, like I said, we knew already that our students have to have access to data, access to the technology infrastructure. It means we have to invest in it. But to compare with brick and mortar, we have not done that exactly. But the issue is still we are in brick and mortar as we speak. And when people go for their practicals, they will go for their practicals in brick and mortar. So this is almost like a situation where we are able to deliver certain things without doing it the traditional way. So in terms of the real comparison of how much this will reduce or increase or stabilize fees, it's an issue that we have to look at. But what I know is that it's effective during this time. And what the ministry has done at this moment, what the government of Zimbabwe has done, is to try and invest so that our students, this thing does not become out of reach of our students. So it's early days yet, but I know it is much cheaper it's actually a matter of reinvesting what we used to invest in bus fare. We are now investing it in data. But I don't know how it comes in, whether it will cancel to zero in terms of effect or whether it will lead to additional costs. But whatever it is, it's a matter of saying this is the best way to evade the virus, and this is the best way, because as I've said before, education is done by people who are alive. And I guess this is the best way we can keep ourselves alive, but at the same time, be effective in what we do. On number two, about the tourism sector, yes, I completely agree that this is a time when the tourism sector has been hit by things that we never predicted would happen, but it has happened. So what we would like to do is to be able to, because education is the best for what we do. So that means we have to be able to offer courses and trainings on how we have to get out of this crisis that we have gotten into in terms of income through the effects of COVID-19. So this is an issue that I think we are ready to do, but nothing is insurmountable. It's going to be over. We are going to win. I've talked about the triumph of the human spirit. In the meantime, I think we have to stage courses on how to recover after COVID-19, especially in the tourism sector. I know we could have been in a hotel right now. We could be having teas. We could have paid airline tickets. We could have paid bus fare and so forth. All that income is income which we have forfeited, which has been forfeited to those who were supposed to benefit from it. But this is the reality that we have at this moment, because you also want to be visited by people who are healthy. And so this is a new era, and also it makes us be able to imagine another future, a future without physical visitors. How will our tourism look like? I would challenge all our academics and scientists and social scientists to reimagine our future and to reimagine the future of tourism. But I know, for example, it will be over, and when it's over, we will be able to survive and even give better and bigger products in the tourism sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for those contributions and for answering the questions as precisely as you could. Ladies and gentlemen, I will ask Kevin Anderson to just come back for just a minute. He wants to tell us something. After Kevin Anderson, I will invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Zimbabwe Manpower Development Fund to just talk to us for a few minutes. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Program Director. Just a quick something that I neglected to share. I've noticed that people are using the chat, but are not able to send the chat to everyone. So just to help you with that, when you click on the chat button, you can select who you want to speak to. So you can either select on the drop-down box the person you would like to speak to, or you can select everyone. If you select everyone, whatever you putting in your message will go to everyone in this particular session. But at the same time, you can also chat to someone specifically. I just thought I need to just make people aware, because I've been receiving a lot of messages on my side, and some of it was intended maybe for the bigger group. And I just wanted to make people aware of that. Thank you, Mr. Program Director.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for that. The CEO for the Zimbabwe Manpower Development Fund, Engineer Marumi, over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, the Director of Ceremonies, the Honorable Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Honorable Professor Murwira, the Permanent Secretary for Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Professor Tagwira, the USB team, the Director for Management Training, Beru, Commissioner Mache, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure most of you, or all of you, are very familiar with Zimbabwe Manpower Development Fund for those who are in the country, and for the benefit of those who are outside the country, like our friends from USB, Zimbabwe Manpower Development Fund, it's a fund that was established by a statute for the sole purpose of supporting the development of human capital development, as well as research in our institutions of higher and tertiary education. ZimDev plays a major role in human capital development. I'm sure we all agree that this COVID-19 has just come in as an accelerator in terms of transformation of our education and training system in terms of our human capital development. There's never been a time like right now where we need the skills to be able to feed our nation, where we need the skills to have a healthy nation. This has provoked a lot of minds in terms of the needs. I'm sure you know that the sole purpose of having skilled human capital is to make sure we solve problems. Like it was rightly said earlier on, that without problems, then there's no need of skilled human capital. Now, looking at our country and the world over, looking at Africa, this is the time you find all nations, they are really reviewing the state of their human capital development. Yes, we pride in ourselves having papers, but I'm sure I've heard that labels and levels are different. Some of the situations in which we are is because of having labels and levels. This is the time to make sure we have what it takes to be able to deliver the goods and services. So as ZimDev, we are very much alive to that need, and we are here to fund the development of skilled human capital in the country, in our institutions of higher and tertiary education. And I can give you examples, especially in the field of innovations. Our higher and tertiary education institutions, they are very much participating in the innovation, especially with the coming in of Education 5.0. We needed to have the resources, we needed to have the platform. And through our able minister, we've come up with what we call innovation hubs, supported by ZimDev in their establishment. We've come up with industrial parks, also supported by ZimDev. You find that some of our institutions, they are now coming up with spin-offs industry, which will aid to the country to become a productive sector. ZimDev is a wide range of projects that is supported through the means of higher and tertiary education. So, ladies and gentlemen, in short, ZimDev is your partner for human capital development. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Marume, for those wise words on sharing the role of ZimDev. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our program. Allow me to thank you for joining this program, and we hope it was as informative as possible. Should you require more information on the programs, please get in touch with Management Training Bureau. We will send out the brochures for the programs Jim shared on your emails, and we will also share with you more contact details. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day also.
Okay.